It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Tuesday, July 1st. Your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that's girding our loins for free agency.
Almost the offseason. Almost.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. I've been podcasting about the Flyers, the NHL, and hockey for a decade, and I'm here with prospect expert and Flyers credentialed reporter for 19 years, Russ Cohen. To keep up with our latest episodes and Flyers news, you can find us at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter, and of course, here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Just a reminder of our weekly off-season poll that we're doing this week. It's a question about Flyers prospects potentially cracking the Flyers lineup this season in Jett Luchanko and Porter Martone. And you can have your voice heard in the poll. Link is in the show notes as well as on our YouTube channel. So make sure you let us know what your vote is and why. Just as a point of order, we are recording before we know anything about Cam York's status prior to the start of official free agency on the 1st. And things could change while we're recording. Things could change after. So if anything happens later in the day today, we will, of course, cover it on tomorrow's show. I do also want to bring up, because for regular listeners of the show that have been around a while, they know that on Tuesdays, we generally have done during the season our Phantoms Tuesday reports where we catch up with the team and the prospects and all of that. And so it being Tuesday, I was like, hey, what are we doing about a coach in Lehigh Valley? Do we know that yet? And the answer is no, Russ.
No, I hear nothing. I mean, I was asking around at the draft. People asked me at the draft, and I had no answer.
Yeah, it's a little tough, especially knowing that our old pal Rocky Thompson has a job with the Bridgeport Islanders. We've kind of alluded to it on a couple
He's a
of
decent
episodes.
coach, but we'll see. At this point, who
Yeah.
knows?
Well, after that news, Bridgeport has also announced, or I don't know if it's official yet, but word on the street is that they are relocating to Hamilton, Ontario
That's a nice
after this
rink. I don't
upcoming
know.
season.
I don't understand it. That's a nice
I
rink.
know.
I don't know what's going on.
I don't know
I hope
either.
that doesn't happen.
It's a pretty solid rink in Bridgeport,
Yeah,
Connecticut, and that proximity for the Islanders is really good.
it is.
Hamilton, Ontario is not.
Not so great.
So I don't know what's going to happen with that affiliation moving forward. But in the meantime, Phantoms still don't have a coach. And there have been some signings and some trades around the NHL that have affected guys that maybe could have been Flyers targets. And, you know, we talked about some of it on yesterday's show in terms of, you know, what the Flyers need versus what kind of cap space they have. So if you haven't listened to that, you can go back and listen. But Nick Hague was somebody that we had talked about in the past and on yesterday's show. Well, he was officially traded from Vegas to Nashville and signed a 4-year deal for $5.5 million.
Yeah, I think, that's probably too rich for the Flyers because they still don't know about York. They still are looking for a goalie. Just for those two things, they have to kind of keep a certain amount of money on aside. So, yeah, I think that just got too rich for them.
Yeah, I think so. And, I think even if the Flyers could have swung the trade, that contract is just way too big. And he doesn't necessarily serve the purpose that they need now. Like, is he almost too good a defenseman for what they need now?
Well, I mean, he's a good defenseman, but he isn't fast. He's not fast at all. So like, that's a thing where it's like, I think the team would like his physicality, but I'm not sure the coach would like his skating. So, who knows?
Right. And he'd be stuck on the third pairing, I would say. And he's not necessarily
No,
a
he's
third
not really
pairing
that.
guy.
That's true.
Yeah, that's really my question. So why would you pay that much money for somebody you're going to bury on the third pairing anyway?
Right.
Alexander Romanov is signing a 8-year, $6.25 million extension with the aforementioned New York Islanders. That is pricey for him.
You could tell that the Islanders have made some changes in the organization, but I think the cap guy's the same.
Yeah. I mean, I think like they're just I just don't understand that, especially, when you're trying to build for the future here to lock somebody down now for that term.
Well, they're going to be paying him in the future. That's the good news.
Yeah. Well, the good news for us as Flyers fans, I guess, relative to the New York Islanders and what they are doing in terms of the other available guys out there. Vladimir Tarasenko was traded to Minnesota, which was, I thought, pretty interesting given all the turmoil there. And they still don't know what they're doing with Marco Rossi.
Yeah. At this point, Tarasenko is like a depreciating asset. So I don't even get excited hearing his name anymore. He was a terrific player. Don't get me wrong. Really liked him. But now, he'll give you some numbers, but sort of some hollow numbers too.
Yeah. Now, as far as some of the goaltenders that were out there, Thatcher Demko is a name that we've brought up, and because of the connection to Rick Tocchet and the fact that, he might make a real solid backup option for Sam Ersson for the Flyers. The Canucks are, in theory, expected to re-sign him, but I think it's still possible that they could trade him even after signing that contract.
Think so. I don't think so. Like I said, I think he wants to stay on the West Coast, and I think he will stay on the West Coast.
I think that's fair. I just think, we have to leave that window or that door open.
You can leave it open. That's just, I just knowing the guy, that's pretty much where he's at. And I'm pretty much going to guess that he's going to control what happens with his contract and where he could get traded. And I'm pretty sure he's going to want to stay on the West Coast.
Yeah. And not that
I don't know that for sure, but I'm just guessing.
Right. Then, not that I think he was necessarily a target for the Flyers, but somebody that was out there that is now signed. Michael DiPietro has signed in Boston.
Yeah. I mean, again, I was excited about him in his draft year. Still excited about him when he started in the AHL. No longer excited about him. Good guy, really great guy. Just, didn't make it. Not the biggest guy. It's a cautionary tale for when you don't have the biggest, frame and goaltender.
Right. It just, again, we talked about this yesterday a little bit, but the goaltending market is so weak this year as far as free agents and availability that it almost seems like a trade is the only way the Flyers were going to get a decent backup, but teams are not necessarily willing to trade their decent backups at this point.
I know. It's true. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, Jake Allen will be out there, but I just don't see it happening.
Right. That's like one of the only free agents. We're going to talk more about that with our predictions segment next. But yeah, I just think that was one of the reasons why I brought up Ville Husso on yesterday's show, just because the Ducks have 3 goaltenders, and that's a rare commodity there.
Mm-hmm.
It gives the Ducks some leverage. And it's an opportunity for the Flyers. And we know they're very willing trade partners. God knows they've done so many deals over the last several years. But again, it's just so few and far between that it's going to be really interesting to see what the Flyers can put together.
I mean, honestly, I'm not sure there's a move out there. If Demko stays like I think he will, I don't think there's a move out there that gives them any kind of appreciable upgrade.
Yeah, I definitely can see that. It's real tough right now, and I feel like that kind of leaves Fedotov twisting in the wind a little bit as well.
He's going to go to the AHL. That's what's going to happen.
Right. Well, we're going to get into our predictions for what the Flyers will do this free agency and how they're going to do it. We're going to get into all that coming up next.
Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. I would still go with Josh Hader for American League Cy Young. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started.
All right. On tomorrow's show, we are going to talk about free agency day one and everything that went down. We will do a dev camp preview and answer your mailbag questions. We already have a lot of them that came in related to the draft, but if you have any additional ones or anything around free agency or what's going on for the rest of this off season, let us know. You can message us on any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment on our YouTube channel. Now, as far as predictions go for the Flyers, I think, the Cam York situation being what it is, and again, we don't know if or how that's resolved as of now. The biggest question is the goaltender situation, as we were just talking about. And I think Ivan Fedotov is a question mark here. And the fact that he just really does have to be willing to go to the AHL at this point, even though the Flyers are paying him all that money. I mean, we did the same with Cal Peterson. I guess we can do it with Fedotov if we need to.
Not
That
going to
is
have a choice.
if the Flyers can manage to find a goaltender in free agency or via trade.
Or they just use Kolosov. Like, they might just do that. Danny Briere has been emphatic that he's still on the roster. This could be why. So they may just deal with that. They're trying to do something. I think unless they give up something that they don't want to give up, they're probably not going to find a goalie.
And I just don't see there even being anything remotely close to a market for Fedotov with his salary being what it is.
No, nobody's taking it with that salary. That's way too high.
Yeah. So it's like that's kind of where they're stuck at.
You send them down, you save like money on the cap, and that's it. You don't save it all, though.
Well, no, as we know with Cal Peterson. So that was a pretty steep cap hit for a goaltender that was sitting on your AHL team. And so, there's always opportunities for goaltenders that come up over the course of the season with injuries and whatnot. And we know Samerson has an injury history. So I would not be surprised.
Yeah, he'll probably come up at some point.
You're right. Right. So again, who knows? We'll see. But
the only thing is, though, Rachel, with the new rules, if Fedotov comes up and they don't want to carry 3, which Tocchet may not want to, then Kolosov will actually have to go in Lehigh again. Like, he won't have a choice for at least a game.
Not this upcoming year, though. That's the thing.
Oh, no, that's right.
That it doesn't kick in.
Yeah, that's right.
Until the following year. So the Flyers are kind of stuck for this year. Now,
right. That's right.
As far as other potential goaltenders, we talked about Thatcher Demko likely not being a possibility. We've mentioned Alex Lyon as a possibility in the past of him returning to the organization. I don't think the relationship had soured that much, but I also think he wants more. I think he wants more.
I think it's soured and he wants more. I think it's both.
Well, I think that it would be nice to have him back, but alas, if we cannot, then that is okay. But the only other kind of goaltenders on the table for free agency are Georgiev and Samsonov, who are not great.com,
Yeah, not worth it. Not worth it.
No, compared to what we already have. This is definitely the devil you know versus the devil you don't know situation.
That's what it's turning into.
Right. And I also do think that between Fedotov and Kolosov, I think the coaching change could have a positive impact on what's going on with them. I think if the communication is better, if Tocchet turns out to be a guy that's more involved with goaltending than Torts was, I think that will help or could help massage the situation to make it go better if that's who they end up with?
I don't know. I don't think he's going to be able to talk him into playing in the AHL if he doesn't want to. I really don't. They have to pay him either way. You know what I mean? And he's already gotten away with it last year. So, like, why wouldn't he try and get away with it again this year? Like,
listen, I am grasping at straws here.
I know you are.
For a solution to this problem, because the Flyers have painted themselves into a very terrible corner.
Yeah, it's not great.
So it'll be very interesting to see if they can get out of it.
Ursa might play 55, 60 games.
Yeah, it's just so impossible to predict. So do you have any ultimate prediction as to what the Flyers end up doing?
Yeah, I think they'll end up surprising us. Like everybody says, you need a goalie, you need this, you need that. We said the same thing about the draft, and then they went a different direction anyhow. They might go a different direction in this because they have a different goaltender. Coach. No, with anybody, with any type of player. Just because you think that they're loaded with something or are set, that coach now, the new coach, may think differently and may give input to Danny that we don't know about. And so, I'm not willing to say now that they're going to pick up everything that I think they're going to, because they didn't even draft that way. So I think that there's a new voice there, and it could change.
I think that's reasonable. I think that based on what we've heard, again, ad nauseum, is that a depth defenseman figure out the goaltending situation. And then there's sort of been this pie in the sky, maybe we'll trade for a center. And that's the messaging that has come from Danny Briere pretty consistently over the past several months. And I do think
that came through at the draft was I
know. Well, I think that's a really good point.
Pretty much seemed like they were going to take a center with one of those first picks, and they got Martone. So clearly we can't listen to
all bets are off.
Yeah.
All bets are off. And that's where I think the defenseman conversation can change. And I think where anything can happen, I think that's more likely to happen in the defenseman conversation, where maybe Gavrikov is still on the table here.
I don't think he will be. And two things. So we know they can't get Aaron Ekblad because he just signed with Florida. So that's
right.
He's back. I didn't think he was going anywhere anyhow, so I never really entertained it. I hear the Rangers are going to get Gavrikov and they'll pay high. So he's going to get like $8.5 million a year. There's no way the Flyers would pay Gavrikov $8.5 million. So I don't think they're getting him. I don't think he's worth that either. Let's be fair.
No. And Danny says he doesn't want to overpay constantly.
Right.
And he'll overpay a little bit because everybody does at free agency. Yes. But is he going to overpay a lot? No. No.
And that's not the guy to overpay on, in my estimation. So I don't think he'll be out there either. So again, is it someone like Klingberg that you wait for like a couple days, and if he doesn't get any offers, maybe he comes because, he did okay at the end of last year. So, who knows? I mean, it could be something like that for a defenseman.
Right. Now, I do think that it should, in theory, be a left-handed defenseman that the Flyers pick up. And so that's cheaper, which is a good thing, as a general rule.
Yeah.
But also, I still think if they're looking to get a quality one that could crack the top four for the Flyers, it's still going to cost them a considerable amount of money. And I would say minimum 5.5 is what we're looking at there. They want a quality defenseman.
Yeah, you're not really getting anybody less. And, if you're doing 5.5 for 1 or 2 years, it's fine as long as, that guy is what they feel can fit in. But the prices for defensemen are high. So at this point, you have to be very careful on who you get, and you can't get somebody too old.
Right. And that's where I see a trade is a lot more likely for the Flyers in this scenario, simply because it will be a known cost for a known term on an existing contract, and you don't have to negotiate on an overpay based on the higher salary cap, that you're getting somebody with a contract that was signed under the lower salary cap. And that's what makes a trade to get a defenseman more appealing to me.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, or maybe they get an RFA the same way they got Peltier, and they don't know what's going to happen to this guy in the future, and they have him for a year. That could happen in a trade too.
Yeah, I think so. Now, what do you think the chances of them getting a center are?
I mean, it seems like Rossi's price is going down by the minute, so it wouldn't shock me if he re-signs in Minnesota. A center of consequence that could play top 6 minutes, I don't think it's great. I don't think the chances are great, only because I think Rossi is going to come off the market soon, maybe even today. So I don't put a lot of stock in it. They may get somebody, and they may get somebody that ends up filling in for 3C, 4C, like Paling did when A-Balls doesn't play and what have you. And they're going to probably have Cates play 2C and Couturier play 1 or flip-flop them. But, unless something happens in a trade, that's probably what you're looking at.
Yeah, I mean,
Zegras is
they're
probably
going to try
take
him
one
at
of those
center.
spots. He'll take one of those spots, and it's his to lose. So there's that too.
Right. So if it's Zegras, Couturier, and Cates for the top 3, I can live with that.
Yeah, that's probably what you're gonna. That's what you're gonna start with, and then it'll be up to Zegras to hold on to the job, But that's what it'll probably start with.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be likely for them to get a high-end center. I think it's maybe possible if they want like a backup for A-Balls they don't feel comfortable with anybody else in the system, that they'll sign another like 4C level guy. But
I mean, they still have Carson DeWart too, and he might make the team out of camp. I mean, so that's what I mean.
Also true.
They have other options of guys who could just kind of fill the role for a year or two.
Yeah, I agree. So, yeah, I think, it's probably going to be a quiet free agency day, but
they'll sign somebody.
Famous last words.
No, I mean, they'll sign somebody, but I don't think it's going to be like a big thing. It might be for some fans, and that's fine. If you're excited about it, that's okay. But I just don't think there's going to be a name out there they're not signing an old Patrick Kane. They're not doing that. So
they're not signing Brent Burns either.
No, they're not signing Brent Burns. So I don't think it's anything like that.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think it could potentially take a couple days for everything to play out for the depth guys for the Flyers. But
we might roll right into dev camp with, a little bit or nothing.
Right. But I do think that if there's a big name involved, it's going to be trade related. It's not going to be a free agent signing. That is
most
my
likely
firm belief.
Most likely.
Yeah. Well, there are so many other variables out there in the NHL with guys about to hit the market. We're going to talk about those top guys, including Marco Rossi, coming up next. All right. So it seems like even though there hasn't been anything official, this Mitch Marner sign and trade to Vegas is the thing that's happening. That'll be probably the biggest splash on free agency day, right?
Yeah, it's happening. There's a picture floating around with his jerseys hanging up in the gift shop of Vegas. I don't know if it's real. Probably not, but it's happening. I mean, when you start hearing about Pietrangelo going to be, multiple surgeries. I was telling somebody at the draft, I said, somebody's going on LTIR. We were guessing names, but I'm like, it's going to be somebody to do this and to try and get a shot at them. And sure enough, it sounds like they have a candidate.
Yeah, I think that is going to be really interesting to see how that plays out for Vegas this upcoming season. And if Marner getting a fresh start there really will change things for him in terms of his reputation.
Yeah. And they're still going to have to move a player. Even with Haig out, they're still going to have to move a player. So, we'll see who that is too.
Right. Now, we talked about Aaron Ekblad staying in Florida, 8 years, a little over $6 million on that contract. Pretty solid, I think, for both sides.
He wanted to be there. So he made sure the number was reasonable. And that's why I felt like he was never leaving. Like, I just never gave it. I saw how he was on the ice with the team, the way they talked about him. The vibe I got was he's staying.
Right. Now, Brad Marchand is the kind of residual effect here of figuring out what the Ekblad contract was going to be and then what kind of money was left for Brad Marchand. I do think he's going to try and stay in Florida, though. I think it obviously worked really well for him, and there is certainly reason for him to stay, but maybe he wants to try doing it again somewhere else and be that extra piece that wins them a cup.
There's a thought out there, and I know people in the Boston area think this too, that he was looking to get paid well in this free agent market, and he had the kind of playoffs he did. So he is going to get paid well. Now, Florida has a limit. Yes, they're a no-tax state, but there's a limit. And they might give Marchand a number, and he may turn it down because it's similar to what Boston used to do to him, and he wants to make more. And that could happen depending on the team. So if there are multiple teams offering him, let's say, $2 million more than Florida, then he might go.
I think he stays in Florida, but
he could.
I think there's a bigger chance of him staying in Florida than not, but I also think that ratio is pretty small. Like it's a 60-40 chance that he'll stay in Florida. That's kind of where I'm at there. Now Nick Ehlers is testing the free market. I just have no sense of like what he's doing and where he wants to go.
I mean, I don't know where he wants to go. He wasn't making probably what he wanted to make. So now that the numbers are inflated, he's going to leave. They're not going to, Winnipeg's not paying him the most money. So he's leaving. He had 63 points. I felt like he was going to be a little better than this in his career. That's not like 63 points is bad. But what I'm basically getting at is for a guy that's playing like 15 minutes a night, 63 points, he's going to get overpaid.
Oh, for sure. That is one thing we know for certain is that he is one of the guys that's going to get extremely overpaid.
Yeah.
I also think Brock Boeser is going to get extremely overpaid.
Yes.
Most likely from what we know now by Edmonton, which is crazy to me with Evander Kane going to Vancouver and then him potentially going to Edmonton. That's a weird trading of players, but it's not a bad thought, to be honest. I think that Boeser has kind of languished a little bit. He's played very well, but
injuries haven't helped him.
Yeah, that is also true. I really feel like Brock Boeser would finally get over that hump somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's going to happen. It could be Boston. It could be, some other places. I think Boston's going to try heavy for him. He's got a great shot. And I think at the end of the day, a GM's going to talk themselves into, we need scoring this bad. So even though the number is this, even though he's gotten hurt, we're still going to do it because we still think he could score 30, 35 goals. And so I think he's going to get more term than you'd want to give. But I like him as a player still.
Sure. I think so. It's like he's just definitely not the kind of guy that the Flyers need.
No, it's not a good fit.
It's just not. Yeah, it's not a good fit. And as we know, the Flyers are kind of stacked on the right side anyway. So
I don't know how Rick Tocchet feels about him. I mean, Brock's a great guy, so I can't imagine he's going to say anything bad about him. But as far as his availability, I think for Tocchet that might be an issue.
Yeah, another player that I'm very curious to see where he ends up is Ivan Provorov, our old friend.
Yeah,
and I think it's right of him to test the market. I don't disagree with that at all because I do think he has found some success, but also I just think he might be a good piece to supplement a top four and possibly be a top pairing guy somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know for sure, but what I think is that he'll wait it out a little while because let's say the Rangers don't get Gavrikov, somebody outbids them. Well, he's always wanted to play in New York, so that's a thing where then I could see that happening. He's not going to be the Rangers' first choice, but if somebody falls off the board, his management might say, just hang back. You might get what you want.
Right. I think that might be a good fit for him, to be honest, with the Rangers. I think that the Rangers are going to make some big changes. Over the next several days.
There's opportunity for him there.
There's a huge opportunity for him there. So I agree. I think that's a really good potential.
He could play,
fit for
a number 2 with Adam Fox if Keandre Miller gets traded.
God.
I'm just saying. I mean, if that happens, and that he's going to be that guy, I don't think they'll put Schneider up there. So there might be opportunity for him.
Yeah, and I understand it's like a completely different circumstance, but also, if the Flyers can make a trade with the Penguins at the draft, maybe they could make a trade with the Rangers for Keandre Miller. And this is definitely wishful thinking.
Oh yeah,
but listen,
you're just trying to put it out into the universe. That's all you're doing.
I am manifesting. Because I do think it would be a good fit for the Flyers.
Oh, it definitely would.
I think they would have to give up a lot, but I also think maybe they can afford to do it for him.
I would tell you the only the only fair trade that I see out there for that is if the Flyers see that they can't come to terms with Cam York, then maybe those guys swap it out, and you see if each team sees if they could sign them either before or after the season. That might make sense.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that for sure as a way to make this a possibility here.
Yeah.
Of course, like there's some old guys out there like Patrick Kane who still want to play.
No.
But I don't know. I just like, who wants him right now? Really?
I mean, maybe if he returns the puck and gives it to the Hall of Fame would be a sign of good faith, but I don't think he has it. We don't know where it is. We still don't know where that puck is.
We don't, do we?
No. It's never been solved. I think a linesman has it, and whenever that linesman retires, I'll be looking on eBay, and it'll probably show up one day or show up in a big, auction house. But we have no idea where that puck is. And I was on the ice not that far long after the goal. I remember looking around. I remember asking people after. There was a show done on it. It's nowhere. Chris Pronger has joked about it.
I'm air
I don't
quoting
think he has
for
it.
those just listening.
I don't think he has it.
All right. And then, of course, as we've mentioned, Marco Rossi, who will likely resign with the Wild at a lower salary. But again, anything can happen there, and anything does happen on free agency day. And we're going to talk all about what went down on tomorrow's show, plus preview Flyers development camp and get to your mailbag questions. So send them in via any of our socials at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com or comment on our YouTube channel. I'm Rachel. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology on the same socials, SPORTSOLOGY.
Thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen today. For your next listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast. There is no off season. It brings you the daily league-wide stories that matter most with local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Have a great day, everyone.